Some people keep diaries. I keep secrets. And tonight, I'm ready to open the very first page. My name isn't important just yet. The fewer details you have, the safer we'll both be. But what you should know is this. I spent more than 30 years as a nurse in some of England's busiest hospitals. Not all my patients were ordinary. Not all of them wanted to get better. Some wanted to disappear. I've been told I have a strange gift for noticing the wrong detail at the wrong time. It's not something you plan for. It's something you're born with, and it follows you like a shadow. And somewhere along the way, that gift is what brought me into the company of one of the greatest crime writers the world has ever known. But before we get there, I need to start at the beginning. Some people choose nursing, others are chosen by it. I didn't know which I was until the first time I held someone's hand as they slipped away. I wasn't supposed to be a nurse, that's the truth. My father thought I'd marry young, maybe help with the family shop. My mother had dreams of me becoming a teacher, something proper, she called it. But after the war, the world wasn't proper anymore. Too many men gone. Too many families broken. I was 17 when the recruitment posters went up in the post office. Women in crisp uniforms, smiling as they bent over hospital beds, sunlight streaming through spotless windows. It looked noble, clean, but nothing in those pictures prepared me for the smell of the wards, a mix of disinfectant, boiled cabbage, and the faint metallic tang of blood. The first months were a blur of training, how to lift without straining your back, how to fold hospital corners so tight you could bounce a coin, how to smile when your feet were screaming and your stomach was growling. But the real lessons weren't in the textbooks. They were in the way Sister Morgan, with her hawk eyes and starched cap, could walk into a room and know which patient was close to giving up just by the way they looked at their hands. And I learned quickly that nursing wasn't just about tending to the living. It was about staying steady when the living became the dead. One night, in the children's ward, a little girl named Elsie stopped breathing. The doctor was running, but I was already there, holding her hand. I whispered her name, as if it might bring her back. It didn't, but I stayed until her mother arrived, because sometimes being a nurse means standing in the dark with someone until the light comes again, even if it is not for them. I thought nursing would be about medicine. I didn't realize it would also be about secrets. Every hospital keeps secrets. Some are locked in filing cabinets. Some are locked in people. It started with a man we called Mr. Gray. Not his real name, of course, but in hospitals you learn to talk in code. He was brought in after midnight, bleeding from a wound no one could quite explain. Officially, it was a fall at work. Unofficially, the ward buzzed with whispers. Mr. Gray had no visitors, no relatives. He signed no forms, but every few days an envelope would appear on his bedside table, thick, unmarked, sealed with plain tape. Inside, I once caught a glimpse of something that wasn't money. It looked like photographs, black and white, blurred, but enough to make my stomach twist. He noticed me looking. His eyes were pale and tired, but his voice was firm when he said, "If you want to stay safe, don't ask about the river." Then he smiled. Not kindly. I told myself I'd forget it, but I didn't. And a week later, Mr. Gray vanished. Not discharged, not transferred, just gone. His bed stripped, his name erased from the records. Sister Morgan said, "Patients come and go," but her hands trembled when she said it. It was my first real lesson. A nurse isn't just a keeper of bodies, she's a keeper of stories. And some of those stories are dangerous to know. You never forget your first case, especially when it almost costs you your life. I was only 19 when I found myself in the middle of it, still a pupil nurse at St. Aldrich's Hospital, a red brick building that always smelled faintly of antiseptic and wet wool coats. It was my third week on the surgical ward, and I was still learning how to walk fast without looking panicked. That night, the rain was so heavy it drummed on the windows like impatient fingers. The hospital seemed quieter than usual, too quiet. Even the night porters spoke in low murmurs. And then, just past midnight, we had an emergency admission. That's what they called it. But the man they brought in, he wasn't just injured. He was terrified. His right leg was broken in 2 places, his shirt clung to him with blood, and his eyes darted at every shadow in the room. He kept muttering, "Don't let him in. Don't let him in." At first I thought it was the fever talking or the morphine, but then he grabbed my wrist. His grip was cold and desperate. "Miss, it wasn't an accident," he whispered. He pushed me. "Off the bridge." Now, a nurse is taught not to gossip, not to pry, but there was something in his voice, something that made me listen. He was a dock worker, he said, but he had seen something at the river the night before, something he shouldn't have seen. He didn't say exactly what, just that men in dark coats were involved, and one of them smiled when he fell. I told the word sister, a woman with eyebrows sharp enough to cut glass, and she gave me a look that could stop a heartbeat. "You didn't hear that," she said. "Do your rounds?" That was the end of it, officially. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were keeping a very dangerous man under our roof. Later that night, I was in the storeroom fetching fresh linens when I heard footsteps behind me. Not the easy stride of a nurse or doctor. This was slow, deliberate. I turned, and there was a man in a heavy coat, standing too far inside for a visitor. His hat shadowed his eyes. "Where's the dock worker?" he asked, his voice smooth and cold. My heart pounded. I told him patients' names were confidential, but he just smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. That was the moment I broke the rules. I slipped out, found the police constable stationed at the gate, and passed him a note. Just a few words. "Man in coat after patient, send help." Within minutes, 2 detectives were inside. They took the stranger away without a fuss. I never saw him again. The dock worker was moved to a safe house. And me, I learned that night that hospitals have their own shadows, and that sometimes saving a life means stepping outside the role you were trained for. You don't meet a woman like Agatha by accident. You're either very lucky or very unlucky. It was in the hospital library, a quiet room nobody used except for the older nurses who needed a place to nap without being caught. I was pretending to study anatomy when she walked in. Tall, dressed not like a nurse or a visitor, but like a woman who belonged in expensive hotels. Her coat was the color of wine, her gloves black as midnight. She looked at me for a long moment before saying, "You're the one who saw Mr. Gray last, aren't you?" I didn't answer, but that was all the confirmation she needed. She sat across from me, placed a small notebook on the table, and pushed it toward me. "Keep this," she said. "Write down what you notice, names, times, faces." I asked who she was. She smiled, someone who listens when others tell me not to. Over the months that followed, Agatha became my shadow and my teacher. She wasn't a nurse, but she knew more about the hospital than most doctors. She taught me how to read the signs, how to spot a visitor who is not really visiting, a doctor whose hands shake not from fatigue but from guilt. And most importantly, she taught me when to keep my mouth shut and when to open it at exactly the right time. These aren't bedtime stories. They're the ones you wish you could forget but can't. I could tell you about the boy who disappeared between X-ray and discharge, the patient who claimed to be poisoned and died before the lab results came back, or the night an entire ward was evacuated without explanation and never reopened. Some of these tales are tangled up in bigger things, smuggling rings that used the hospital laundry cart's political scandals, hidden in the guise of charity donations, even a missing ledger that could have ruined a very important man. Each story is a thread, and if you pull too hard, the whole thing unravels. That's why I kept them locked away in my head for so long. But now it's time. Time to lay them out, one by one. I'll tell you about the patients I couldn't save, the ones I did, and the ones I was told not to try. I'll give you the names I remember and some I can't forget. And if you listen closely, you might hear the truth hiding between my words. Some stories can't be told until the right people are gone, and the wrong people are watching. I've kept these secrets for most of my life. When you're young and caught up in something dangerous, you imagine that one day it will all be neatly wrapped up. Criminals in prison, mystery solved. But real life isn't like that. Some of the cases I was involved in as a nurse, and as something more, never saw the inside of a courtroom. Some of the names were too powerful, the connections too deep. Sometimes the evidence disappeared as if it had never existed at all. For years, I told myself I'd take it all to the grave, safer that way. No one could be threatened, no one could use my words against me. But lately, I've been thinking about the ones who didn't get justice. The young woman whose case was dismissed because the wrong man shook the right hand. The little boy who went missing and was never found. And then there's the one case that still keeps me awake at night, the one I can't shake. It's been 50 years, and I still don't know who was truly behind it. Oh, I have my suspicions. I have the faces in my mind. But without someone out there hearing the clues, it will die with me. You see, telling these stories now isn't just for me. It's for the people who might recognize a detail, a name, a place, a sound. Maybe you lived on that street. Maybe you knew someone who vanished. Maybe, without realizing it, you've been carrying the missing piece all along. And yes, I waited until now because most of the dangerous ones are gone. I've outlived them. But there's always a chance that someone is still listening, someone who remembers. So I'll speak, not all at once, not everything in order. But I'll give you what I know, and maybe, just maybe, we'll solve one or two of these together. Because the past doesn't stay buried forever. It waits. It waits until someone is brave enough to dig it up, and this is only the beginning. Before we go any further, understand this. These stories aren't neat. They don't all have endings. Some of the people you'll meet will disappear mid-sentence. Some will lie straight to your face. And some are still out there. If you keep listening, you'll hear about the night the power went out in the operating theater, and the wrong patient woke up. You'll learn why I never walk past the old boiler room alone. And you'll find out exactly what Agatha meant when she said, the hospital has a heartbeat, but it's not always in the patient's. But for now, I'll leave you with this. Once you've heard these stories, you can't unhear them. And once you know the truth, you'll see it everywhere.